Chinese Air Force fighter jet has fired flares at an Australian patrol aircraft flying the South China Sea.
Of an Australian aircraft conducting a routine patrol in the South China Sea on Tuesday at 1 p.m. They flew dangerously close, just 30 metres from the RAF plane, which was carrying about a dozen crew.
What's important to understand is that the proximity of the Chinese Air Force plane was so close that there's no way you could have maintained control over those flares, and there was a real risk that those flares could have hit our P-8 plane.
20 metres. That's all that separated a RAF P-8A Poseidon from two Chinese J-16s over the Paracels. Radar lock. Flares. Chaff. One wrong input and you're watching a mid-air kill chain play out in real time. In the next minutes, we break down why 20 meters crosses the unspoken intercept norms, how flares and chaff can blind sensors and foul intakes, and what Beijing's pilots were signaling by pressing that close. Was this lawful expulsion, or an escalation line crossed? Stay as we map the decision tree that let the Poseidon disengage without a fireball.
An Australian Air Force crew has survived a dangerous near-miss in the skies over the South China Sea, in another flare incident displaying Beijing's increasing military aggression.
A Chinese military plane came alongside the Australian P-8 surveillance aircraft when it twice released flares in very close proximity. International waters, the timing significant. This act of aggression from Beijing on the eve of the PM's White House meeting, where AUKUS was cemented and a critical minerals deal inked, both are bad news for China.
Before we move on, I'd like to ask you a small favor. If you appreciate this content, please take a second to like this video and subscribe to the channel. Over 98% of you watch the videos without subscribing. It costs you nothing, but it makes a huge difference to us. So, did you click the subscribe button? Great! Thank you so much. Now, back to the video. If 500 knots meets 20 meters, who owns the next second? A RAF P-8A rolls a routine line near the Paracels. A mainland radar net paints the Poseidon and holds it. The tone that says, "You're in the scope," fires in the cockpit. Two J-16s lift from Hainan and sprint to merge. Minutes, not miles, start to matter. Standard play is simple: offset approach, radio hail, formation parade at a safe split. But then the J-16s slide inside a bus length, nose on, and toss flares and chaff right in front of a turbofan ISR jet. That is not choreography. That is gambling with closure, heat, and metal. Cruise red radar locks like body language. A soft lock, track while scan, means you're in a search beam shared with other tracks, a wide cone that watches without committing. A hard lock, single target track, narrows to a spear, stabilizes on you, and cues weapons and range gates. It spikes warning gear, tightens nerves, and signals intent. You treat it as a live threat because it can become one in a blink. NATO and ICAO-style intercept guidance prizes lateral separation, an altitude split, and no high-energy moves in the target jet's nose. You show the jet, rock a wing, hold station. You do not cross the bow at burner. You do not dump expendables into engines that gulp air by the ton. Flares burn hot and fast to lure heat seekers, but they can superheat the airstream and tempt ingestion. Chaff is a cloud of thin metal cut to confuse radar. It blooms on screens, pings warning receivers, and, if pulled into a compressor, can score blades and surge a core. At highway speed, 20 meters is a car length. At 500 knots, it's a blink. Add wake turbulence and jet wash and a heavier P-8A rides a dirty wave with slow roll authority. Now stack the cockpit load, dazzled sensors, RM and GNSS doubts, RWR screaming under a chaff bloom. One fix. One trim. One log entry. This proximity breaks tacit safety norms and turns a routine escort into a near-kinetic event. So why push that close when a clean escort would have sent the same message without flirting with wreckage? If the move risked a collision, what was the message worth to Beijing? Beijing's line is simple: territorial airspace over Shisha Chuandao and a lawful expulsion. Canberra's line is just as clear: international airspace and an unsafe, unjustified, dangerous intercept. Both statements set the legal ground. Neither one slows a closing jet. Two clocks ran. One in Beijing's halls: prove sovereignty, deter surveillance, set terms near the paracels. One in the Poseidon cockpit: keep lift, keep engines clean, keep a margin. Every second at knife range adds lottery odds to a no-fault crash that nobody intended but everyone owns. Read the intent as compellence. Force an immediate change in ISR behavior without shooting. That rubs hard against Allied practice built on open skies norms: operate lawfully, record everything, and do not yield position under threat. Look at the latter. Detect. Shadow. Hail. Offset escort. Wing rock. Then the jump, flares and chaff in the nose, a hard radar lock, a nose-on pass across intake air. That climbs past recent patterns and plants a flag in a new tier of pressure. How did the P-8A get out clean? Fly the book. Hold stable attitude. Avoid abrupt stick. Bleed or add a few knots to thicken separation. Shift sensors to preserve range and bearing, park modes that wash out in clutter, and keep a running log of comms and RWR hits. Pick a disengage vector that widens the bubble without conceding the legal claim. Allied eyes helped. US and Japanese ISR tracked the exchange in real time, adding third-party data that cuts ambiguity and feeds the diplomatic play that follows. When someone else sees the same tape, stories narrow. The crew lesson is blunt. Tight formation discipline. Guard against ingestion. No flare and chaff signatures. Triage threats fast so the jet keeps flying while the record builds. The Poseidon left with no damage. The cost landed in the rulebook. Beijing tested a new normal, and crews will brief for it on the next sortie. So your call: one-off hard push, or the baseline for the Paracel's air bubble? Comment your choice below. The danger now isn't distance. It's doctrine drift. 20 meters becomes normal, and crews start budgeting for risk like it's fuel. That shifts training, checklists, and the mental model you carry into a crowded sky. You saw the shift in the follow-on moves: mirrored flights, harder patrol lines, live-fire drills stacked nearby. A chess match with fast pieces and no pause clock. If you want real tactical breakdowns when doctrine meets brinkmanship, subscribe and tell me, do crews press on or pull back at this line? One misread cue turns a flare into a funeral. Train for the gap. Fly the plan. Subscribe and join a community that seeks to understand the realities of modern conflict.